The 2025 Las Vegas Raiders were a bad football team. I think I just summed up their entire season. But we're not going to look on the past here. We're going to look at the future. And I got to be honest, I'm kind of digging the Raiders' future. They have a flashy new quarterback. Well, actually, two, but one's not so flashy anymore. A really good running back prospect that showed the flashes last year, even behind a horrendous offense line, and one of the best young tight ends in the NFL. Plus, you got one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, still, after a crazy offseason. So, I'm excited to talk about the 2026 Raiders, and I'm excited to jump into it, so let's get to it. Looking at free agency, there's no other move I can talk about first than the Max Crosby trade that was completed and then not completed because the Ravens backed out. Now, I think we all know why the Ravens backed out of the trade, and it's not necessarily the best reasons, but it's not the end of the world for the Raiders. Would they have absolutely been better probably for those two first round picks considering Crosby's injury history and his age and how Father Time works? Yeah, most likely. But the Raiders aren't a bad football team when you look at them on paper. Having a star edge rusher really helps them round out into a far better team. And they brought in guys like Kirk Cousins, who is a very adequate quarterback who showed a lot of promise last year in Atlanta after coming in for Michael Penix and is familiar with this system. And that's a big thing. You look at the fact that the Raiders had to fix their entire team pretty much. Max Crosby was one of the few bright spots on this team that didn't need to be fixed, that wasn't a young player. And they made those additions. Like I mentioned, Kirk Cousins, bringing him in, good move. Tyler Linderbaum is a tremendous center, one of the best in the NFL. Would I have paid him $27 million? No. But the Raiders had plenty of cap space, and they had a major need. And you look at the fact that we all knew they were drafting Fernando Mendoza first overall at the time, and the fact they brought in Kirk Cousins, who is not the most mobile guy. He wasn't when he was in his prime, and he's especially not anymore. Having a center like Tyler Linderbaum is a major, major win. Kwity Paye, I think that's a bit of an overpayment, but you had so much money. Sure, why not? And it gives someone next to Crosby. Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, I'm going to bunch them together here. Nakobe Dean, I'm really excited for. I'm really interested to see how that works. Quay Walker, I have my reservations on him just because so many issues happened when he was on the field for the Packers. I can remember his rookie year of just watching him and thinking over and over again, well, there's Quay Walker doing the bad things again. Oh, yep, he is not good. And he has gotten better. He's improved. He's a more solid player, and he makes a lot less boneheaded mistakes like he did his early years. But it's still something that I'm worried about in the back of my head. Jalen Nailor is the perfect wide receiver 3 for any offense. Eric Stokes, talented guy. And I can speak as a Steelers fan. Connor Hayward is a possible fullback guy that can be used in Clint Kubiak's system to the fullest. I really like the offseason they did. Do I think they overpaid a couple guys? Yeah, but they had so much money, and this team was the worst team in the NFL last year that you just had to get better, and sometimes to get better and bring in good players, you have to overpay when you're that bad. And the Raiders paid the price. They paid a lot of talented guys a lot of money, and it's going to be interesting to see how they all play out. Maybe they will get out of them sooner rather than later, but you look at a big bulk of them, they should be good. Kirk Cousins is not coming in to be the franchise quarterback. He is the bridge quarterback to help Fernando Mendoza to the fullest. Tyler Linderbaum is expected to be the franchise center. Kwity Paye, he is a Robin to Max Crosby's Batman. Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean, I honestly don't know what to exactly say about that. Nakobe Dean, I think could really pop. Quay Walker, I said my things with him. And Jalen Nailor, just a beautiful pickup. Overall, the Raiders free agency, even though it probably would have been better if they got those 2 first-round picks for Crosby just because that was an insane value, I'm not going to hate on it because they're still a better team after free agency than they were entering it. Now, as bad as I want to start off talking about Fernando Mendoza, I gotta save him for last just because how important of a pick he is. But looking at the rest of the draft, oh boy, do I love it. Traydon Stukes is a safety nickel guy that can play either position. I prefer him at the nickel position because I think he can cover, I think he can come up and tackle very well, and also, nickel is the most important position in the secondary. It's how these championship level teams build their defenses. Seahawks had Witherspoon, Chiefs had McDuffie. It's what a modern NFL defense needs to really excel. Their next pick was Kieron Crawford, who I got into a little late in the draft process. But I kind of really loved him because his traits just flew off the board to me. This is a major high upside swing. I don't necessarily know if he's ever going to work out, as I think his techniques and instincts need to be worked on a good bit. But you just look at him as that stand-up rush linebacker prospect. He has all those traits. He's got good speed. He's got good strength. He is a ball of clay, and I'm curious to see how the Raiders mold him. Trey Zoon III, I really didn't have a whole lot to say on him in general during the draft process. He was a left tackle for a good bit. Sounds like he's going to be moved inside. I really don't have a determining factor if I think that's going to be great or not, so I'm going to skip over him. Dermod McCoy. Talk about an insanely talented player that fell because of medicals. If his knee is good, and we don't know if it's good, it could be a ticking time bomb for all we know. But if that knee is good, that is an incredible player to get in the 4th round. Talented beyond belief. And he can be the outside guy, and I think he can play inside as one. But he was, in general, my number 1 boundary corner this draft class. If he was healthy. If he played last year and was healthy, there's no way he is getting to the 4th round. He is insanely talented and just feels like the type of guy that a team like the Raiders should take their chance on. Mike Washington Jr., a running back prospect I really liked as he had great bursts to the outside. Will be a good change-up back when you have Ashton Jeanty, who's just going to bludgeon you to death and do some good speed on you. But Mike Washington is just quick. He can get to the outside fast. He can break off quick. He's got really good strides. He is extremely talented in that aspect of the game. Dalton Johnson. Ironically, they drafted both Arizona safeties, and I really think he's just a safety. I don't think he has that versatility. Maybe he could be the backup nickel in case of emergency, but I don't like his speed, and I don't think he can cover slot guys all too well. I wasn't the biggest Dalton Johnson fan this entire draft class. Hegaziah Masses, I didn't watch a whole bunch of him. That's just me being completely honest. I didn't get to him in my draft watch. Same with Malik Benson. I didn't watch a whole bunch of him. I thought with what I did see from him, he looked talented, worth a shot in the 6th round, but I can't give you a good breakdown of his playstyle whatsoever. Brandon Cleveland. I was very interested to see where he would go because he was really dominant in all the A-gaps and would muddy them up. He is shorter. He's not prototypical NFL interior defense tackle size, but he is just an A-gap monster and will muddy it up and control it, have as much fun as possible. Will he make the team? I don't know, but I can at least see with what he can do, and for a 7th round pick, that's very important. And now going to the top, Fernando Mendoza. I have been a Fernando Mendoza believer since this time last year. I actually thought he was the best quarterback prospect to enter the draft class at this time last year. And this was all me thinking Arch was never going to enter because he was going back for a senior year. So I looked at that. I had him graded out higher than Drew Aller at this time last year. I had him graded out higher than Cade Klubnik, which I never understood that thought at all. But yeah, had him graded out higher. Every single guy, Nussmeier, Sellers. I thought Mendoza was the best of the bunch. Why? Because I saw him do a lot with very little at Cal. Cal had a running back that was really talented, and that was it. But you could watch Mendoza. His eyes were reading defenses extremely well. He has an extremely talented arm. He can sit back there and rip it. Honestly, when I watched him at Cal, I thought, oh, that's young Matt Stafford. And when I watched him at Indiana, oh, that's young Matt Stafford. And now all I'm thinking is, man, if he becomes Matt Stafford, that's awesome. And I know Stafford got a bad rep for a while he was in Detroit. Stafford, when he was young, when he was really athletic before all these injuries really hampered him, he could move, he could do everything, and his arm's still extremely talented, but he was a prototypical NFL quarterback with what we're looking for the modern lens. Fernando Mendoza's that. The Las Vegas Raiders really confused me with the hiring of Clint Kubiak, because at the time, it was no secret they were going to draft Fernando Mendoza. Even before they hired Kubiak, even before the season ended, everyone knew, yeah, Fernando Mendoza is the first overall pick, but they hired the coach that doesn't fit him at all. And that's really where I'm at with this, is that I can overlook a lot of issues. I'm not the biggest Clint Kubiak fan. I think he is a fine play caller that hasn't evolved his offense, and if he doesn't, he's gonna get caught sooner than later. But he hasn't been caught yet, so it's working really well. And hey, he just won a Super Bowl last year. He obviously knows what he's doing as a play caller. But he needs to change his offense, especially with Fernando Mendoza, as Fernando Mendoza does not fit the West Coast style offense. He's not the type of guy that's going to be running around and doing a lot of play actions, throw on the run, really sit back and analyze defenses, as that's not his strength right now. His strength is ripping the ball into tight holes and really utilizing his ability. You look at Matt Stafford, who I'm going back to compare this to, he would not fit into Clint Kubiak's system when he first came in the league. He had to develop, he had to evolve as a player, and it took him a while. But the Stafford we see today, yeah, he could run it, but would he be the most effective compared to how Sean McVay calls his offense to utilize him? No. And that's where I'm at with this, is that I'm concerned the Raiders are limiting Fernando Mendoza before he's even played it down. And I could be completely wrong. Clint Kubiak could change his offense. He could figure out how to work Fernando Mendoza perfectly. I mean, they brought in Kirk Cousins to really help Mendoza and bridge that gap to hopefully develop him. But I think the old adage is coaches should coach to their players' strengths, not coach to their own strengths. And I'm terrified that Clint Kubiak's going to coach to his own strength, which has worked for him very well in the past, but not coach to his number one overall pick strength. Now, after everything I've said, my opinion on the Raiders are they're going to be better than last year, but they're not ready yet. This team is going to need to develop more. They have talent, do not get me wrong. Brock Bowers is one of the best tight ends in the NFL. Ashton Jeanty, I believe, can enter the realm of one of the best running backs in the NFL this year. They paid Tyler Linderbaum to be one of the best centers in the NFL, and Maxx Crosby is one of the best edge rushers in the NFL. But they just lack talent all around. The rest of their offensive line, I'm still concerned about. Kolton Miller absolutely is a good player, but he's coming off a devastating injury. And you just look at everything else, the Raiders just aren't there yet, which is fine. They don't need to make the playoffs this year for it to be a successful season. A successful season for the Raiders is they are finished with a top 10 pick so they can draft someone high and their young players develop. If they somehow made the playoffs, that's a cherry on top of a great season. But the big concern is they need to get their young players to develop, because as they develop and as they progress, this team is setting themselves up better for the future instead of the present. And that's completely fine, as they are in a rebuild. But they have their quarterback already, so they just got to figure out everything else. Now, my big question is, when will Fernando Mendoza see the field? Because I don't see him riding the bench the entire season. The Raiders will be out of the playoffs by some point during the season, and most likely that's when you see him. Unless Kirk Cousins gets injured, I just don't see a path for him starting until the Raiders are at the playoffs. Unless, well, hang on, if Kirk Cousins is beyond awful, in which case the Raiders have to make that move, but realistically, Kirk Cousins won't be beyond awful. I'd like to say thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked this video, hit that like button if you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button if you'd share this. I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm doing 32 in 32 days. Raiders fans, I uploaded a Chiefs season team preview yesterday, and you might want to check that out with what I had to say about the Chiefs. But if you want to come back, you want to check out some team previews later on, or if you're not even a Raiders fan, come back, check these all out. I'm doing 32 in 32 days, 32 NFL team previews in 32 consecutive days. And if you have any opinions on the Raiders, write them in the comment section down below. I read every single comment, and I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and I hope y'all have an amazing